Training Institute. Hopefully so far you've been able to have a first day full of a lot of great sessions, a lot of good information, and we're looking forward to day 2 being just as full. Before we get started, we've got to go over some really fun, exciting housekeeping items. First, raise your hand if you bought a ticket to Epcot for the dessert party tonight. Yes, those are my people. I will see you there. If you did get a ticket, you can pick those up anytime today. Just make sure you get to that registration desk before 4 o'clock so that you can get in. If you do not get your ticket and your wristband, they will not let you into the event. It's very important. That's one thing you want to make sure you get done today. If you need a break during the day, there's a quiet room available in the Magnolia room and a nursing and feeding room in Sable. Please remember to use the conference app, the Huga app. If you're having trouble, feel free to stop by the registration desk and our team can help you with that. Make sure you're using it to ask any questions for the larger plenaries here. That'll be for this morning and the other ones to come. And we have evaluations in the app as well, so make sure you take some time to give us some feedback. We really do use that feedback to help us plan for future conferences, so we do want to hear what you have to say. So our morning plenary is Facing the Gun Violence Epidemic, Survivor Stories, and a Call to Action. This plenary is sponsored by the Haggard Law Firm, and I'd like to welcome our panelists now. Already on the stage, it says to welcome to the stage, but since they're here, welcome to the stage. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Michael Haggard, Managing Partner of the Haggard Law Firm. He is the past president of the National Crime Victim Bar Association, and he's currently the secretary of our board at the National Center for Victims of Crime. He also has the unique and tragic distinction of handling more gun violence cases than any other plaintiff's attorney in the nation. Please welcome him and the panelists. Tim Schmidt is the proud father of Tim Schmidt Jr., who was tragically killed in the downtown Orlando Halloween mass shooting on October 31st, 2024. In his son's memory, he founded Until Forever, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting victims, families, and communities impacted by gun violence. Through his work, Tim is turning unimaginable loss into meaningful action and hope. Happy Perry is the mother of Deshaun Perry, who was killed in the University of Virginia mass shooting on November 13th, 2022. To honor her son's life and legacy, she has organized neighborhood events that give back to the community he loved. From bike giveaways to her recent End Gun Violence football camp. Through these efforts, Happy keeps Deshaun's spirit alive while working to build safer, stronger communities. Jeff Binkley is the father of Mara Binkley, who was killed in the Tallahassee Hot Yoga Studio shooting on November 2nd, 2018. In her memory, he founded Mara's Voice, a foundation dedicated to ending gun violence through research, advocacy, and education. Mara's Voice strives to learn as much as possible about violent acts and how to prevent them, recognizing that hate is a serious threat to public safety. Through this work, Jeff and the foundation are a positive force for culture change, ensuring Mara's Voice continues to inspire action and hope. Dr. Alyssa Reingold is a clinical psychologist, professor, and associate director at the National Crime Victim Research and Treatment Center at the Medical University of South Carolina. She serves as director of the Response, Recovery, and Resiliency Division of the National Mass Violence Center. With over 125 peer-reviewed publications and book chapters and 300 presentations and workshops, Dr. Reingold's work focuses on trauma, bereavement, and victimization. For more than 25 years, she has been deeply honored to support individuals navigating profound grief and trauma. Our work is driven by the hope of translating these experiences into guidance and healing for those dedicated to helping others. Here's a little bit more on these three incredible survivors and the ones that they lost.
Heartbreak at the University of Virginia, where 3 members of the school's football team were killed. The young men were returning from a class trip to Washington, D.C., where they took in a play.
Sean Perry was also an artist.
I noticed as a child that was his way of expressing himself. He wanted sketchbooks and arts materials, and it went on from there.
I believe once he got to high school, it kind of took off. After his 10th, 11th grade, then he started doing the pottery and more advanced artwork.
The family started receiving his artwork from the university and got a surprise.
And so that's him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
The shield.
and that's you.
Yes.
A 3D printed self-portrait inspired by Greek mythology and a hidden image of Mom, always on his mind.
Kind-hearted and goal-oriented, Happy shares a list her son made. Number 6 captures his gracious spirit, a goal to give back to his family and the people who helped him achieve a dream of one day playing in the NFL.
Gracious God, our Father, we come to you on this beautiful, beautiful Saturday. We come thanking you for what this day represents, the first annual football camp in honor of a wonderful, wonderful young man, the life, the legacy, and the leadership of the Sean Perry.
Another deadly shooting, this time in Florida, where a gunman opened fire at a yoga studio in Tallahassee last night. The man killed 2 people.
Maura embodied the Tri-Delta woman, brave, bold, and kind.
She was outgoing, adventurous. She was truly, truly one of a kind.
Always smiling. Her smile definitely lit up any room. So many people said that, and I think their reaction to it, more than just a smile, was because of what was behind that smile. A person who loved and cared for people deeply, did everything she could every day to enhance the well-being of others.
We're here to officially and publicly launch Maura's Voice. Our goal is to foster positive cultural change so that we can effectively address the entirely unacceptable epidemic levels of violence in our society. Listen again for Maura's voice, because she's reminding us all that at the core of everything, only love can conquer hate.
Halloween took a horrific turn in Orlando, Florida, when gunshots rang out during a large celebration overnight. 2 people were killed.
My son was overachieving. He had friends of all walks of life. The best friend circle a parent could ever ask for. Always laughing, always working on himself.
My favorite part about my dad and our brother-like father and son relationship is that he always treated me like a man. I was never a baby. The standards were always set so high. And what else could you expect from a man who's taken so many risks and always managed to come out on top?
We're coming on 9 years of Pulse. What has changed since then? What's it going to take, Orlando? When are you going to shape up?
Creating the Until Forever charity in his honor to help families of crime victims.
But we'll never get our son back. We can keep his helping heart, the one you shot directly into on that street over there, by providing love and support for others going through the same thing.
We need change. This shouldn't have happened.
He started the nonprofit Until Forever, which raises money for families and victims of violent crimes.
We want to be there and pick up the phone when these things happen and say, hey, don't worry about, a GoFundMe that may or may not get traction. We're here for you. Please send us your funeral bill. Let us get you therapy.
Good morning, everyone. We're here to talk today about the epidemic of our time, and that's gun violence. 40,000 people a year in the United States of America die from gun violence. And yes, this is going to see, as you just saw in that video, this will be a deep discussion. But as you can see from that video, the hope and inspiration that these 3 families have fought through and what they are doing individually in their own communities and throughout the country, I think is incredibly inspiring. And our goal today is not only for the folks on this stage to leave here with a renewed purpose, but for all of you, for all of you to enact what they are doing, what you are doing in your jobs every day, to somehow turn the tide of gun violence in the United States of America. And, you know, what's profound to me about that video is that loss is not just Jeff's, Tim, and Happy's. That loss is ours. When you look at those 3 kids, all in college, all doing incredible things, when society loses people like that, we all lose. Our society loses, because those were 3 kids in college doing incredible things. They had already achieved so much, and you can't lose that in a society. And what I'd like to do starting off is I'd like to do more justice to learn just who these incredible individuals were. And Tim, I'd like to start with you, and if you could tell the audience a little bit more about Tim Jr.
Sure. I was so proud of him. He was such an overachiever, such a likable, admirable, caring person. He always wanted to learn. He never gave you any negative responses when you asked him to do things. He was always just a helping hand. I called him Little Buddy when he was small, and he became my best friend. As he said, we had a brotherly-like relationship. It was just awesome living with someone who was not only your son, your friend, a mentee, and a brother all in one. I mean, we were inseparable. He was so bonded with me that when he was 14, he said, "Yo, Dad." That's always kind of how he addressed me. "Yo, Dad. I think you should change your Instagram handle. It's Tim Schmidt 99. And I said, "Well, you were born on 9/9. What do you want me to change it to?" He said, "I think we should go Tim Schmidt Sr., Tim Schmidt Jr., and have that connection." I said, "Okay, I think that's really sweet." 2 years later, he said, "Are you ready to get a tattoo?" We had Junior and Senior, forever tattooing each other. I was so proud of him. He was so good at choosing friends, making good decisions. He was on multiple soccer clubs. He left every single one of those with friendships with not only his teammates, his coaches, but the parents, the volunteers, the people in the administration, and they've all been showing up for us, which is phenomenal. I couldn't be more proud of him, and I miss him every day.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Jeff, when I look at Mara, I went to Florida State. I see my sister, and more importantly now, I see my daughter Madison, who's 23. All she accomplished. If you can just explain to everyone who she was.
Certainly, and I'm often asked to talk about Mara, and I always start from a kind of different place every time. Don't know how I'm going to start. Given the way Mike set this up, I'll start with her life at Florida State in the year 2018. She was a senior, 21-year-old senior, had completed her classwork, was going to do some directed independent study during the spring. She had applied for Fulbright Fellowship. She had studied previously in Germany, and this was to return to Germany and teach. And her ultimate plan was to follow that up with a Fulbright Fellowship, which she applied for, which she was awarded, but she never knew she got. So she was at the point at which she was going to move beyond the college world, the undergrad world, and I guess Mara was going to be on a larger stage. And I think what prepared her best for that was simply her love for other people. Mara loved everyone as a sister or a brother. To her, there was no other. Cruel irony, othering, is the basis of hate. Can't hate a group of people unless you consider them something other. Mara lost her life in a crime of hate on November 2nd, 2018, along with Dr. Nancy Van Vessen. She was a loved and admired medical school professor at Florida State University. Dr. Van Vessen left behind 3 daughters in their 20s. 4 other women were wounded. They survived. They will never recover. Families don't really recover. Communities never really recover. And as a society, unless we develop the collective will to address what we so accurately refer to as epidemic of violence, preventable violence, our society will never even get on the road to recovery to what I would consider a truly decent society. That was Mara's message to the world. She was in Tallahassee and went to the Capitol with Florida State students to support those lost and their families in the Parkland shooting that year. She and her friends were very aware. They grew up in it. Columbine happened before she was born. They grew up in it. They got it. They understood it. Maybe it's up to that generation to change it. I don't know. But it is based in that love, but also Mara exhibited strong will. And that's also what it's going to take, a conviction and a will. So for this, so much more tomorrow, but I'll provide that context. Leave that with you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Happy, a lot of the folks who attended last year met Deshaun through the art exhibit that we had, and it was very, very awesome for a lot of the attendees, and I know obviously very personal for the NCVC staff. Can you talk a little bit about Deshaun outside the field, if you could, to introduce him to everybody?
Absolutely. Deshaun was our Renaissance man. He loved to love. He loved to show love. Starting from youth football or basketball, we started him out in sports until he found his niche. And as he grew up, I saw the maturity and I saw the strength. He was very well in depth with his connection, with his faith and with God. Always in church, always doing something for others. As he went through middle school and then in high school, it was just the levels of growth that I saw was astounding for me as a mother, a young mother, and my young man. And I do have 2 others. He had an older sister and a younger sister, but he was my middle Renaissance man, like he was our guy. In high school, he worked at one of the Bay County Youth Fair to save money to buy his own car. He didn't know that I was there to match the money that he was saving, but that's another story. And everybody, like, he would not let his players, his team members walk. If he saw them on the street, he would pick them up, and that's who he was. Even through college, there in Virginia, from Miami, trying to get this class in snow. He don't know how to drive in snow, but he would that's who he was, and I'm so proud of him. So proud of him. And there's little nuggets that he's left in my life to let me know that he's here always with me. And so I carry that with me, and that is my hope for the future.
Thank you, Haggard. Thank you for just giving us a glimpse of these incredible people. And Dr. Reingold, if you could talk to us a little bit about the center, its role, and your role in dealing with this epidemic.
Sure. So I'm from the National Mass Violence Center. We were established in 2017 through the Office for Victims of Crime to be able to provide resources and support for communities, both in preparing for mass violence incidents that is victim-centric, as well as to assist with response and recovery efforts, walking alongside local agencies and organizations who might end up experiencing a mass violence incident in their community. So we provide resources. We don't reinvent the wheel. There's some resources that exist out there. We have 23 partnering organizations, national organizations, and CDC is one of those, that we will work together to provide resources, to create resources in the aftermath. We also do some research to be able to better understand the impact of mass violence, not only on direct victims and survivors and family members, but on the entire community, because this has a rippling effect. So we do a little bit of work to better understand risk factors for that as well.
Thank you so much. Last night when we met, there was a question that I did not know if I should ask, and I asked all of you, and you told me I had to ask it. And that is, when we have professionals out here that deal with the most serious levels of trauma, the question is, how do you go on? How do you pick yourself up every day? And I didn't know if that was appropriate to ask, and Jeff looked at me and said, well, if you're not asking that, you have no business moderating this panel. And so Jeff, I'll start with you. I start out every trial that I handle where a parent has lost a child, and I remind the jury that we have a name in our dictionary for if you've lost your parents, you're an orphan, or if you lost a spouse, you're a widow. We have no word for what you three have endured. And so Jeff, you could kind of start and tell folks how you've tried.
I didn't realize you were going to start with me, but my three-word answer would be, I don't know. How you do it, I don't really know. It's an improvisation. It is every day is difficult in its own way, but I think most important element of that improvisation is always keep looking out, and the sense of purpose that we develop, and I think that's true for all of us, is keep that in mind, develop that sense of purpose, and that love that your, in our case, child, that they exhibit toward Durfee Hamlin, toward others. Project that into the world, whether that be all immediately around you or as far out as you can. It doesn't matter, but I do think that outward look and that consciousness of trying to deliver love, deliver hope, that honors legacies. And I think that's what best I can do and tell. That it's certainly in my case, that's what gets me up here and gets me out of here.
Jim? Well, I know this is free-flowing, and we went over things last night and said that, things might change a little bit as we go, but I thought you were my friend. You already threw me a curveball. You said, how do you get up every day? And to that, I would answer, I'm 10 months into this. How are you assuming that I'm sleeping? Because I don't, many nights. I didn't sleep well last night. I didn't have these bags under my eyes a year ago. In fact, you might not believe it, but for 14 years I had a skincare company that specialized in anti-aging creams, and I was the face of it. Now, I don't sleep very often and often have dark circles and under eye bags, and it's just a part of the equation that deal with. It's gotten better over time, thanks to edibles primarily. Not gonna lie, I'm a very transparent person. But things change over time. It's gotten better, but there's just a lot of times your mind wanders, you can't think, you get memories, and you get stuck. And getting up every morning is different every single day, as Jeff suggested. We don't know what's going to trigger us throughout the day. There's different things you see, you feel, you hear, you smell, you touch that remind you of moments. And for me, that's probably the hardest thing. But his memories give me the drive, and as Happy said earlier, there's nuggets. And I wasn't anyone that ever thought I'd go through this, number one. But number two, you hear people say they're always with you. And to me, I just thought that was a positive reinforcement thing. Like, let's stay happy and positive and believe that they're with us. No, it's real. It's very real. One example I can give you, and there's many, but one example I can give you is my son turned 18 his senior year, and in high school, of course. And I made him a video of just the memories I'd collected since he was a baby all the way through until about June that summer. And I had my video editor make a really nice montage. If you want to go to YouTube, happy 18th birthday, Tim Schmidt Jr. I urge you, check it out. You'll get to know him very, very well. The song I played in it is Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, because that was his personality. That song pops up in the most ridiculous moments. My wife and I were driving to a farmer's market about 12 miles from our hometown that we wanted to check out. We'd never been. We wanted to get our little mini golden doodle out of the house so she could run around and smell and meet other dogs, and we could pick up some produce. We were not 50 feet away from the hospital he was born at, and organically on Sirius XM radio. That song came on. It comes on at various happy hours, places we've never been to. And that's just one example, but that song comes on, I just instantly freak out a little bit, and I'm like, see, he's with us. And to me, that was the best example I could give of it, but there's so many more, as Happy suggested. Little nuggets show up, and the darndest things happen, and until you experience that, you'll never really understand it.
Thank you. Sorry about the curveball, buddy.
It's all right.
Before I get to Happy, I want, Patricia Oliver is here. You lost her son, Joaquin, at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and Manny Oliver once said to me that gun violence is the new cancer, and that it will come to you, Mike. And I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know what form. And Deshaun Perry played high school football with my son. And I used to always say, as a trial lawyer, when I would meet Jeff or meet Tim, wow, I wish I had met Laura and Tim Jr. before, until I represented Happy, because it ripped me in half. Because Manny was right. It did come to me. It did come to my doorstep. And I, obviously, Happy and I live in the same hometown and see each other a lot. And we're together from the beginning, but maybe you can talk a little bit about your journey over the last couple of years, Happy, to you.
The question was, how do I get up?
As Tim made a very good point, you assumed that I needed to get up.
My push forward is always to know that somebody's watching me and somebody wants to know my story. And the strength that I have within, I have to pour out, because I'm dealing with our future, the younger crowd. And I want them to know that there's hope after, right? And so I go out in the community, and I'm knocking on doors, and I'm helping parents, and I'm trying to find resources in a place where we got budget cuts, right? To help others. And I feel like there is a lot of power in numbers. So when things like this happen, that we see on the news every day, we're losing babies now. We're losing our future. So to go and just knock on the door and get that hug from that mom, and just to give her that sense of hope in a hopeless world, that is my push. And so with my foundation that I created in honor of Deshaun, I'm in Miami, so it's happening maybe 3 times a day. And I get these calls, and I get up, and I'm still working full time, but I still find the time. And then there are his teammates, from Pop Warner football to Gulliver to University of Virginia, who still call and text. And when they get in those moments, they need that push to move forward. So I try my best to be that person and be there for them.
Thank you. Dr. Reingold, I want to switch and talk a little bit, obviously because of our audience, that unfortunately we live in a world where we have to prepare for these events. And communities, organizations, and preparing to deal with, as you said, not only the direct victims, but obviously everything that ripples from that. Can you talk to us a little bit about the work that you do to try to get communities ready? And then I'd like to talk to each of the families about what their experience was with those organizations as they went through.
Sure. So we have a division at the National Mass Violence Center on preparedness. And one of the things we really encourage communities doing is developing plans. Unfortunately, it's not if, it's a when. And making sure those plans are victim-centric. So often you'll have emergency management, and communities have their mass casualty plans. You'll have victim services perhaps have their plans. You'll have mental health folks having their plans. But it's not a connected, cohesive plan. And all folks need to come to the table and get to know each other. Collaboration is key. So organizations who don't want to be meeting each other at a family assistance center, that is really essential, because if we're not working together, it impacts victims and survivors. It adds an extra layer of chaos when there's already chaos going on. And so creating collaborations, creating not just plans, but planning. So a plan in a book on your shelf that sits there, right, isn't planning, right? It's a document. Planning is active, and so constantly talking and working through. We do have 16 best practices in planning and preparedness. Our center offers free consultation to communities to develop their victim-centric plan and coordinated efforts. And also recognizing that even with great planning, every incident's unique and different, and flexibility is really essential. Making sure individuals, victim service professionals in the room, that you're trained up on evidence-based early intervention strategies, and that your mental health professionals are trained up in evidence-based long-term care as well. Because mass violence is different. It is different. All victimization is horrendous. All homicide is horrendous. Mass violence, there's just an extra layer of complexities. So developing planning around that is really important.
Thank you so much. Jeff, if you can talk to the group about what you found from the community that you dealt with. Obviously, you were in Atlanta. Mara went to Florida State. The Florida State community was involved, the Tallahassee community, but I want everyone to us learn from this that not only maybe some good things that were done by them, but also things that we can learn from that maybe that was missing. Just as Dr. Reingold said, every situation is different, therefore sometimes folks miss some stuff.
Certainly, and in this case, the community that we were facing was the university. And I'll make a comment about Tallahassee in a moment, but it's primarily the university. The aspect of this crime, this tragedy that a lot of people don't know, and I think it is something that's important to understand, that everyone involved, even though this is off campus, including the perpetrator and all victims, were either alums, students, or faculty at Florida State University. The perpetrator had 2 master's degrees from Florida State. He was not a resident of Tallahassee at the time, but so everybody else, Dr. Van Bessem, and then the others were students, undergrad, law students, grad students, cross-section. So it was primarily the university's responsibility. Now, and I don't know, for the wounded, I don't know what the hospitals did. We were on the phone with the hospital, and we didn't know if Mara was alive or not. And all they could tell us, she's at the hospital, and we got a call. And that was kind of it. Okay. So, next day, I go to Tallahassee. At that point, certainly for us, the university community embraced us. And I think it was different for, the other victims. I think it was different for everybody, what they got out of that. We may have gotten more just because of circumstances, and Mara was a member of Tri Delta. We met with all of her story and talked to them that next day. That was important for them, and it was important for us. They held a vigil, and which was great. It was really, it's touching. And I just attended another one there this April with another shooting on campus. Very similar. Candles, advice. There was a woman that said we shouldn't take drugs or drink. I'm not condoning anything particularly, but I just wanted to say, yeah, you try it. So some of the stuff wasn't particularly helpful. I guess she was talking about those things. I don't know. But it was, there's some things with the little things we appreciated. Like, not that I know we needed it, but in that first day, you don't know. I mean, it was a hate crime. It was a hate crime against women. So we did have university police escorts. Appreciated that. Got to know our officer. Got to know the police chief. For us, and I can't say because I think some of the other people, they didn't want all that. And because the wounded, these young women, they were all just traumatized. So badly, not that we weren't traumatized, but we were there, and we felt like, as my wife and I, as adults, and we knew a lot of these young people, that we had a responsibility to them too. But the students, we talked about that. And they came around, and of course they gave us condolences, and some of them were with crutches and bandages, and I know people reached out to them through university counseling, these sorts of things, but the university did put its arms around people. There was one young man there in the studio, his girlfriend at the time, now his wife, with them. He certainly saved some lives by engaging that perpetrator, causing the guy's gun to jam. He intended to take his own life anyway, but it stopped long enough for people to get out. The university, of course, with him, with Josh and his girlfriend, and they certainly got a lot of attention. What I did notice that all these victims dealt with it in very many ways, and some kind of withdrew from the community. I want to do a big shout out for victim advocates, because we had a great victim advocate from Tallahassee Police Department. The Chief DeLeo at that time, Vanisha, our victim advocates, they were really standing there with us. I don't remember what Vanisha said or did, or Chief DeLeo, I don't remember. But it was good. Whatever it was good. Because that they were there with us, and we felt they were real. It was not only their job, and it was great to see them doing their job, but also we just got that feeling that they were there, standing with us, and for the appropriate period of time. So those victim advocate programs, I think, are very important. There were some things that we learned about how to address, and I won't minimize that, but it was that touch. And the way they did it. The larger community, they do, you know, I was, and I saw the best practices and everything. I didn't see any of those being, you know, at the community level. I didn't really see any of those being deployed. The city had a kind of a get together at Cascades Park, and people spoke, kind of a healing recovery thing. I think there was some defensive and protection behavior as well going on, and it was maybe somewhat guised as support, but it was pretty obvious what it was. I wouldn't say that offended us. We understood it, we got it, but it was that. You know, I don't know how you keep that out or keep it away, but that is something that it's not needed. It doesn't serve any purpose. It doesn't prevent anything or protect anything. And I think that's something to be watchful of. And I think that was really the only negative. It really gets to leadership. I was talking to somebody last night about leadership, and I want to mention somebody personally because it comes from the top, the president of Florida State University at that time, Dr. John Thrasher, who passed away this summer. It was his, you know, it was his leadership, and you could see it, feel it all the way down, that made FSU's response so loving, so humane, and so effective. Without that, institutions, if they don't have the right kind of leadership, I think others have this, you rub up against institutions, it's usually not a very good feeling for victims, and I think without President Thrasher, it would not have been that way. A lot is in the leadership of our institutions, and when they fail in prevention or you know, dealing with victims, if that leadership's not there, you can put all the plans together and advice, it is not going to really serve its purpose.
Thank you so much. Tim, we're in Orlando. Obviously, Orlando had suffered a pulse shooting before, obviously, the Halloween shooting where you lost Tim Jr. What did help you, what you thought they could improve, and maybe ask bluntly, did you think that they had learned and things had changed? I know you obviously, you have never entered in your mind that you would be somewhere where pulse victims were, but when we see this happen over and over again in communities, and there might be folks here from Orlando that maybe can learn from your experience.
Well, clearly they didn't learn from Pulse, or this wouldn't have happened. I mean, how do you have something like Pulse happen? And I remember that reverberated a lot around South Florida too, because as you all know, a lot of South Floridians go to school up here, there's summer schools. A lot of us visit, go to the parks, play soccer up here at Wild Willow Sports, go on and on and on. They clearly didn't learn from it because they're still out there having these big venues, these people coming in and just making money on everything they want to do without any worry about what could possibly happen. And obviously, for me and a lot of others, the worst happened. So I don't know if they care. I don't know if Orlando just is all about the cash grab. I don't know. But to me, it's obvious nothing's changed because if they would have, I mean, this was what, they were 7 years apart? Something would have changed, but it continues to happen. As far as my experience in the aftermath, it's mixed for a lot of different reasons. I got to give a big shout out to UCF. They've been amazing. And obviously nothing happened on their campus. It was downtown, but they went above and beyond for my family to make sure that we had not only support and grief counseling, they offered everything, but I could write a book about 12 hours of, I don't even know what I titled it, but it's basically to summarize my 5 a.m. on November 1st to 5 p.m. on November 1st. From the time we found out from my son's best friend's parents, whose 21-year-old daughter knocked on our door so ferociously we thought we were getting broken into. And I wish we did. That would have been the best thing ever. Take everything, rape our dog, whatever you want to do. I can't take that back. Don't rape our dog. But that would have been the best scenario, though. We know they were coming to tell us that my son was unaccounted for. And that leads into my next thing. He was pronounced dead at the hospital before 2 a.m., well before 2 a.m. Police didn't call me. Hospital didn't call me. He had his ID on him. He had his phone on him. We have the same name. His address is on there. If you type in Tim Schmidt with the address in Weston, Florida, you will find my phone number. It's that simple. Not one person notified us. We had to get a fierce knock on our door by a 21-year-old girl who's, let me back up. When their son called crying, saying that he was unaccounted for after 2 a.m., they did everything they could to find out what had happened to him. They'd hoping that in the mass exodus after hearing the gunshots that he lost his phone in the shuffle and just simply, couldn't find it. There were 75,000 plus people there that night. Hours went by, and his parents made a judgment call to come to our house. They lived a couple cities over. I was sleeping, the phone was on silent, so they didn't let him into the community. The daughter got out of the car and ran 3/4 of a mile, crying, knocking on our door. And they just said that he was unaccounted for. And as I went to my computer, she said there was a mass shooting. As I went to my computer, within seconds, I saw him in his exact costume he'd sent us the night earlier when I told him to have fun and be safe, getting CPR on the ground. So again, the hospital didn't tell me this. Police didn't tell me this. How do I say this professionally? I think there's a lot of room for improvement in communications for both the police department and the hospital. I finally got a hold of the hospital that my son's friends had tracked down where he was at. We would not give him any information, and I respect that. There's HIPAA, but they confirmed that he was there. They couldn't say anything about it, but when I finally got through, they kept passing me the chaplain, and he said, I can't talk to you. You have to talk to the doctor. And at that point, I knew exactly what had happened. And I said, just be straight with me. And we're here. We've had hours of not knowing. To at which point, maybe 15, 20 minutes later, they called back with the news. At any rate, I made some phone calls. We made our way up and met with the police department, who was welcoming to us, but led off with a question that just turned me off so much that I could never forgive them. What was his gang affiliation? That was asked to me. He was rushing for a fraternity. Are those gangs now? No, we know that. That's a stupid question. He said, I'm sorry, I had to ask that. It's not the first thing you say to people when they go through this kind of thing. So from that point on, like I said, I have a lot of bad experiences, and mostly it's communications. I talked to Orlando Health, and they had told me, because I wanted to know his last steps. I called, I asked, was he dead on arrival? Did you try to get him? What exactly happened? Walk me through it, because nobody knows. It's still a mystery. We'll send you all the medical records, but we understand he was in cardiac arrest when we found him. Well, they found him at 1:11, but he wasn't pronounced dead until like 1:42. There's all these gaps. I want to know this stuff. I'd like to know, did he say anything? Did he ask for me? Did they ever follow up with the records? No. Called multiple times. So, we got legal help. We want answers. It sucks we have to go down this. It should be transparent. If any of you ever lost as much as a cell phone, I would go to hell and back trying to find it for you. I know how hard it is when you lose your cell phone. That sucks. So yeah, there's a lot of improvement on those ends, but big shout out to UCF. They were great. And then back home in our community in Weston, Florida, everyone's been amazing. Everything from the charities we've supported, the Jason Taylor Foundation and Sides, been supporting them for years. They've all come back and now supported our charity, which is doing great things. In fact, I'll touch on that, I believe, a little bit later, but that's my experience with community up here in terms of how my son's death shaped out. And to wrap up the 12 hours, we found out around 5 a.m. and by 5 p.m. we'd had his dorm room cleaned out and we were on our way back to Weston.
Tim, thank you so much. And I want to get to all your foundational work. I do not want to run out of time and not talk about the incredible things that you three are doing. But, if folks were at the plenary yesterday, they talked about during the Catholic Church scandal, the absolute effects of the media and how important it is to get the media involved in these type of stories. And I want to you talk to the group a little bit about your experience with the University of Virginia, just so some folks know. when this tragedy happened at UVA, which, by the way, we talk about prevalence. So we talked about the Halloween shooting. What did Tim immediately mention? Pulse. Jeff can go over all the shootings at Florida State. And we all probably remember Virginia Tech. I'm not sure it might. The Virginia Tech shooting that occurred. So after this UVA shooting, where 3 men lost their lives, 2 others were injured, $1.5 million was given to 2 law firms to do an investigation into how this happened. Did the threat assessment go right and everything like that? And the university did not give it to the families right away. And more importantly, and Happy, I want you to talk about, they didn't share it with the University of Miami, the University of Washington. What did they learn that could prevent this at Austin Peay or Texas or Broward Community College and every other university that has dorms in the United States, because this individual was allowed to have a gun on the University of Virginia's campus. They knew about it, and they didn't do anything. Happy, if you could talk before we get to all the great work you guys are doing. Just a little bit about that frustration, not only of not cooperating you, but not entering into UVA as the leader. We know what happens. Let's help other kids prevent this.
So my initial fight with UVA was we presented them with a bunch of reforms. So we're like, okay, we have this platform, and we can use this platform, and we can go ahead and create a protocol that will save others. We can send it to all these universities and use it. I mean, it doesn't have to be, we can tweak it a little bit if we need it, but there's something needs to be in place. 3 years later, they got nothing. They have made some changes, slight changes, but in my case, a student liaison team, so there was there was a tip saying that this young man had a gun on campus. They sent a student liaison team to the dorm room of this person. He did not cooperate. That was the end of the story. How this could have been prevented. But they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. The university did not know what to do. On the night that everything took place, Deshaun and I were on the phone. We were on the phone. He was telling me about because they had just left D.C. He had gone to see the Emmett Till play. And he was telling me about everything. They went to a restaurant in D.C. He had Ethiopian food. He was telling me what he had, and it was delicious. And I can hear the music in the background. And he said, we're passing McHugh, which is the athletic center. My car is in the garage. My phone is going dead. I'll call you right back. And that was at 10:17 p.m. I said, I love you, son. I'm very proud of you. He said, I love you, Mom. And those were my last words to my baby. And the Twitters, I got social media had more information than I had. I'm calling, nobody's calling me. I got no calls from anybody, any university official, any police, nobody. And they sent out a hotline. I called the hotline number, no information. I know there's only one hospital in Virginia, which is the VA hospital. I called there. She told me she couldn't give me any information without his HIPAA, and she hung up on me. So I'm trying to get the HIPAA information to get back to the hospital. I'm in Miami. I've already booked my flight to get to Virginia. My flight was canceled. Why? Because the perpetrator was still on the loose, and there was a stay-in-place order for Charlottesville. So, still nothing from the university. Nobody called me. say about 3 in the morning, I get a call from the head coach saying that my son was still unaccounted for. Okay, you're the head coach. I need somebody else to tell me where he is. His car hadn't moved because I was cleaning his car because I had the Apple AirTag in his car. His car hadn't moved. His cell phone hadn't moved. There was nothing. And then I finally got the call that he didn't make it. I said, and my question to her was, what's next? Well, we're going to send the private jet to come pick you guys up from Florida. They flew us into Richmond, Virginia, and gave us a phone number to the coroner's office. Told us that we're free to eat whatever we wanted to eat at the hotel, and they left us there for 3 days. Of calling, my son had already been transported from Charlottesville to the medical examiner's office in Richmond, Virginia. My question was, why is my son not in the hospital? Who next to kin identified this body? And why, y'all told me you guys were sending the plane for me. So you know I was coming, so why is he not in the hospital? Who identified this body? And they said, oh, we found his ID in his pocket. So from then, I had no words for him. No words. 3 days of lies. 3 days of lies until they told me that the state attorney said that because of the mass the shooting, she would not open the bag so that we could view these bodies. She's not going to open the bag. That's what she told me. And that's how we were treated more so as the perpetrator. And it's like all of our rights were taken away. And it's like we don't have rights. And to this day, we feel the same way. And so with the reforms and with the fight, there's something on the other side. And I promise, like, my fight is to make sure that if I can save one person, then I've done my due diligence.
And you have. And I think that's something we heard yesterday about that things are safer. And I think when we look at the news and we look at the stats, they're not good, but there are preventative things going on that are working. And we only have about 8-9 minutes left. You guys have been incredible. And what I love about this, and I hope everybody appreciates it, you're talking about what we can learn and how we can be better and how our communities can be better. What I would say to our community is learn from you three. Because what I want to get to, and you're going to have to be somewhat brief, is how you've turned this absolute tragedy into purpose. I'd like each of you, I think probably got about 6-7 minutes left, or about 10, to talk about what you've been doing, how you got the inspiration to do what you're doing, and how everybody here maybe can help. So Tim, maybe I'll start with you, and what your foundation is doing, and how you got that inspiration. But I might have to cut you off in 3 minutes because we got to get to the other two.
In a nutshell, we started Intel Forever, which is intelforever.org, in an effort to bridge the gap between need-based funeral expenses, therapy, meal train, anything that a family that had a loss like we did went through unexpectedly. I think people would understand when these are children, and I think anyone below 40 probably should really look into this. Most people don't. They don't have wills. They don't plan for this. No one has money for a funeral for a child. GoFundMe's can work, and they can also fail. It just depends on your network and who you associate yourself with. We did very well because my son went to 2 very large schools, high school and college. We were very well networked, spent significant time in 3 different places in the world. I'd like to say I had an impact at every one of them, so we did very well at that. But some people didn't have that luxury. So Intel Forever is there to help pay, again, funeral expenses, which we're in contact with the families. I grew up just south of Minneapolis. So that is our first endeavor. We just started this in February. We're getting funds in. We've got a few good companies, some family members that have donated, including all our founders, my wife, my mother. And our first endeavor when this came out, we knew we had to put whatever was in the bank to help these children's funerals in Minneapolis, where I grew up just miles away. And the reason we started this is because my son's whole mission in life was to help people. He did very well at it. He made all of his friends' highlight tapes in soccer. Some went on to play college, some went on to play national team, and some are playing professionally. All kids that he knew. So it's the least we can do for him. Get his word out there. He's helping people from up above.
It's awesome. Can you give us a website? Or
intelforever.org. You'll see the whole story and mission statement, everything about it.
Jeff, talk to us about Mars Voice and what you all have been doing and what you continue to do.
Certainly, the inspiration came quickly. My wife and I, late wife and I, we just felt our voice telling us we needed to do something about prevention, because from the beginning it was obvious, as with so many of these tragic events, that it was preventable. And given that she was at Florida State, we knew people, major state university, we were introduced to faculty who were working on things around hate crimes and incel subculture, and so our thought was, let's create and found Mars Voice Research Fund, Florida State, and it's designed to better understand the motivations, the pathways to violence of these perpetrators, and try to prevent them as early on as possible, but also to learn and recommend best practices to whatever stage that person of concern, as they call them, whatever stage they are, that the protocols are there to take appropriate action. That's through faculty and grad students in the College of Social Work, School of Criminology there, psychology. We have a partnership with the Anti-Defamation League for research and investigations of people who are potentially violent. And there's a continuum, and this is kind of a rough thing to say, but law enforcement, that you have these people, they're a graph, okay, and over here, I'm seeing this in my mind, is what happened tomorrow, and they call that bang. And our focus is to do research, support policy that can be enacted so these people are kept to the left of bang. Because at some point, if there isn't some sort of intervention, it's going to happen. Those of you who are survivors, you know that is the focus, in summary, of Mars Voice, to do our part to contribute as much as we can to that body of knowledge.
And you've done it. It's been incredible the last couple of years watching it. And Happy, tell us about some of the events that you are having for folks back home in Miami.
So I started Deshaun Emir Perry Foundation on behalf of my son. What I didn't know is that him and his friends had already started in 2022 to get together a Christmas bike drive. So when he was coming home that December, they would always get together and have something, whether it was, buy toys and go around the neighborhood and give away toys. Well, this year they had saved up all their stipends and they were going to do a bike drive. So when things happened in November, one of his friends came and he said, I know this is rough, but are we still going to do the bike drive? And I said, yeah. And it went from there. And then I want to say January, I was driving down the street and there was a little boy riding a bike and he was flagging down my car. So I was like, what's going on? Are you okay? He said, just tell Mississippi Sean Perry I said thank you for my life. And that was it. And from then on, it's been full-fledged, and that's what we're going to do.
The audience wants to know, are you going to let me coach at the football camp this year or not? So, you know. Dr. Reingo, I sit in awe of these families every time. And I know that everybody's path and journey is different when they go through something as tragic as this. How do you at the center, and how should folks, when they're dealing with survivors who want to go down this path? The NCBC just had their first Advocate Academy this week, that folks who want to get into this fight, into this purpose after tragedy, what advice can you give everybody out here when they deal with survivors that want to go down this path? How do you counsel and try to make that happen if it's the right journey for them?
Yeah, we've heard from all these wonderful individuals about the importance of creating meaning, right, out of tragedy. We're not always going to find what makes sense about what happened, but we can possibly find meaning and purpose and connection to loved ones through those actions. And I think that is, as part of a healing journey, because it's always a journey, that is, I think, what gets people up in the morning, right? Is that connection, that meaning, doing things in honor of, is really important. So that meaning making and hope. So heard kind of words of hope, right, is really important, and how we can foster that. And that looks different from everybody. It doesn't have to be creating an organization. It could be simple acts of kindness to others, but it's helping each individual figure out what is that way of creating that sense of meaning and connection in life that's different now. So I think that's, as providers, we just walk alongside that. It's not up to us to determine either, right? But it's helping create, hopefully, a safe environment to be able to allow somebody to figure that out and support that journey.
We only have about 5 minutes left. We have a number of questions. What I'm going to do is maybe somebody from the panel can pick out an answer, and we'll try to get to these with one answer each. And this is obviously from a provider. I often want to ask the family to tell me about their loved one, but I'm afraid that it would be inappropriate of me. Is there a best time to approach this with the family, to really learn about a loved one? Anyone want to take that on? Happy?
I would say give us some time, and it'll all come out. The initial feeling is just shock. So it's kind of overwhelming when people keep coming to you in the initial realm of what's going on. Give us some time, and I think the presentation will come out a little bit better than it would if we felt like we're being bombarded.
This is from a prosecutor. What are early intervention strategies you have learned and can share with us so we can help prevent this horrific violence? That might be best for you, Jeff.
If someone shows up, the first thing is, obviously, if you're concerned, they need to be reported, and there need to be mechanisms. If you don't know what that mechanism is, people can feel lost. I'd say turn first to their police jurisdiction, but because the best practice is for law enforcement to go talk to them. That's the best practice. Go talk to that person of concern. And I have talked to some, said, well, you can't, we get all these calls if somebody's dangerous, that they have to be addressed. Because out of 100, whatever, one of them, is certainly going to be. So best practice is that you want to encourage whoever, law enforcement, often they have behavioral officers, they take on these, and certainly in this state, in large jurisdictions, but others as well. I know in Atlanta they do. And the people who are of concern, and almost all these mass shooters, goes back, red flags, and we said, oh, yeah, we're not surprised we did that. So somebody reach out and start talking, start learning, start gathering information about them, and that information needs to be retained, and then it needs to flow through the system. It needs to be out there for wherever determine where that person is, where they might go. Those pipelines are there, and that information needs to stay in the process so that there's at least an opportunity when they go down that pathway, you know they're there, you know about them. That gives you the ability to intervene at the right place.
We are out of time. We have 3 more pages in the outline. We have 7 more questions from the audience, but we're not going to be able to get to them. I hope that this has been helpful for you all, and I hope we've accomplished our goal. And one thing I'd ask of the audience, I have the incredible privilege to represent these 3 families. I am in all of them every day. I would just ask all of you to stand and recognize them for their incredible work. Thank you all so much for attending, and just with that message, let's bring this hope and this inspiration to do better. Thank you all very much.